Please rise.
Yeah.
Oyez, oyez, oyez. All persons ought to before the Honorable Judge of the Court of Common Pleas of Lycoming County holding this day, give attention and ye shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth and this Honorable Court. The Honorable Court is now in session.
Please be seated. Good afternoon. You may have been expecting Judge McCoy here today, but I'm happy to say that she's in Syracuse, New York, getting ready to celebrate her daughter's freshman year participation in the National Equestrian Championship in Syracuse, New York. So I had agreed to fill in with her, or for her, and with Christian Fry to welcome you to today's ceremony for Law Day. Judge McCoy and Christian Fry, MDJ Fry, have been working as administrators of this committee for a number of years. So it's always a wonderful opportunity for the judges to get to hear the work and see the work that is done in completion of the topic for each year. So I'm grateful that everybody's here to celebrate Law Day this year. I would call upon MDJ Fry to make his opening remarks, please.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. My name is Christian Fry, and as the Law Day Committee Chairman, I'd like to welcome all of you to this year's Law Day celebration here in Lycoming County. This year's Law Day theme, Free Speech, Free Press, Free Society, is a timely one, as it focuses on the First Amendment and particularly on the freedom of the press. As we do each year, we held an art and essay contest among the students of Lycoming County, and with this year's a contest again focusing on the First Amendment. I think you will all be very impressed by the quality and the caliber of the submissions that you will receive, will view here today, that will be presented to you. This year is also a very special year for the Lycoming Law Association. We are, as a celebration, celebrating our 150th anniversary. When our association was formed in 1869, it was comprised of 13 attorneys. Today, we are proud to have a membership of nearly 200 attorneys. I am privileged to also this year be serving as the 118th president of the association. And I believe we have some of our past presidents here today. Any past presidents that we have, if you wouldn't mind standing up, please. I'd like to thank all of you for the time and energy that you've committed towards making this association the great association that it is today. And if we could give all of our past presidents a round of applause. We have a number of events planned to celebrate our 150th anniversary this year, including a private showing of the production of To Kill a Mockingbird, which will be presented by our Community Theater League. So this year, in addition to the cash prize that each winner receives, we will also be providing them with a set of tickets to see that production as guests of the association. I hope that all of the winners and their families enjoy that show. And with that, I'll turn it back to Judge Butts.
Okay, thank you. I'd call upon the administrators and teachers from Loyalsock, Williamsport, and McCall to come forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I think we're missing one teacher from Williamsport School District. Oh, here she comes.
Actually,
Two.
yeah, there's two more too, if we're going to call them all out.
Well, we're not going to start to call names.
What's fair is fair.
See, I just thought I had to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Would you please stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Thank you. Teachers and administrators. I now call upon our county commissioners who are here to present the proclamation. It looks like the chairman and the vice chairman, Chairman McKernan and Vice Chair Commissioner Masser are here. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Judge. I'm Commissioner Jack McKernan and Commissioner Tony Masser. And before we read the proclamation, I just want to thank the schools for their participation, the faculty for working with the students, and the parents for working with the students. I think we all learn that it's all about getting involved and learning, trying different experiences, and hopefully the students that have participated will find something good, and maybe this will nudge you towards a career in law or law enforcement, somewhere in those lines.
I'd just like to add, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the projects created by the students, because in years past, this is one of my favorite events as being a county commissioner. They put their heart and soul into it, and you can tell they've done it independently. So I'm looking forward to it, and have a good day.
The proclamation. Whereas Law Day, first held in 1958, was established in the United States and exemplifies the merits of our court system. And whereas Law Day affords citizens the opportunity to reflect on our country's judicial system, a system that provides a forum for the peaceable resolution of disputes among citizens, permits citizens to obtain indemnification of their grievances, even grievances against the government itself, and provides extensive protection of the defendant to protect against the possibility of unjust imprisonment by an overzealous government, a system which seems preferable to unchecked government which cannot be held to account. And whereas Law Day is observed in our community with activities which include honoring Law Day essay and art winners, presentations by local government officials and judicial representatives, and celebrations of our court system. Now therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the County of Lycoming proclaim Friday, May 3rd, 2019 as Law Day in the County of Lycoming, and encourage citizens to recognize the advantages of our judicial system and to support all those who are intricately involved in our court system and who strive toward justice for all. In witness thereof, we have set our hand and seal the 3rd day of May, 2019, the County of Lycoming, Jack McKernan, Chairman, Tony R. Masera, Vice Chairman, Richard Marabito, Secretary. Mr. Fry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. And I just want to mention one other thing. Judge Linhart is here today, but he's currently in the midst of a fairly long hearing. He hopes to join us at some point later on in the proceeding. MDJ Fry.
This year we had, I think, an unprecedented number of submissions. We received hundreds of essays and dozens of art entries. And the process of reviewing all of them took a significant number of hours. And so I'd like to just take a moment to thank the committee that donated their time to do that. Judge McCoy, who is not here with us, Dave Wilk, John Petrovito, Don Martino, Tammy Taylor, Jennifer Lynn, Jennifer Heverly, Robert Cronin, Jen Ayers, Mark Dreyer, Angela Lavecchio, Jerry Rook, Rebecca Hovenstein, and Michelle Fry. And our courthouse dog, Jedi, was also with us all along the way. And I will just note that I believe Jedi will be at the reception in the Jurors Lounge if any of the students would like to meet Jedi when we're done here today. So thank you to all of our committee. And so we will start with our Law Day essay winners. And so we had two different prompts for two different grade ranges. So for our kindergarten to fifth grade level, the prompt was discuss why free speech and free press are important and how do these freedoms affect your daily life. For grades 6 through 12, the prompt was as follows. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "Were up to me to decide whether we had a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. Explain why you agree or disagree with this statement." And so with that backdrop, I will welcome our first Law Day essay winner, Lindsay Garber, a fifth grader from McCall Middle School, or McCall Elementary, I'm sorry, and her teachers to come up and join us, please. Lindsay, do we have Mrs. Simpson here? Are either of your teachers here? No. Mrs. Weaver? Is she your teacher? Mrs. Weaver, come on up. Do you have... No. I'm going to give you this. Do you want to hold this, or do you want me to hold it for you? All right, perfect.
Freedom of speech and freedom of the press. We are lucky to have them. Can you imagine living in a country where you couldn't disagree with something someone said or did? It would be terrible, wouldn't it? That is why we are lucky to have freedom of speech and freedom of the press here in America. Freedom of speech means that we have the rights to express ourselves if we disagree or disapprove with something someone's doing. We are allowed to state our opinions and ideas to anybody we want, as long as it is appropriate and doesn't break any rules or laws. Freedom of the press means that the media can announce anything. Can you imagine if the news station had to ask the government what they were allowed to say on TV? In some countries, the government is afraid of being criticized, so people don't have freedom of speech and freedom of the press. If you think about it, these rights affect our daily lives, so we are lucky to have them. We know what is happening around us because we are allowed to watch the news and they talk about new things every day. If we see something we don't like, we can use freedom of speech to change it. Sometimes in history that this has happened would be when slavery was still legal and when women weren't allowed to vote. But it is not just things that happened a long time ago. People protest current situations too. In my personal experiences, if something was happening at school, I could talk to a teacher or to the principal. Aren't you so grateful for freedom of speech and freedom of the press? What would our country be without them? Well, I know that answer. Our country wouldn't be the amazing country we know today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lindsay. All right, next we have Ross Mailer, seventh grader from Williamsport, and Mrs. Cipriani. There you go.
Were it up to me to decide whether we had a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I would not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. As a land of the free, we should agree with Thomas Jefferson that a land with news but lacking a government is superior to a land where the government controls news and in turn our opinions and livelihoods. If the government controlled our news, we lose our ability to learn and be our own person. Our country would stop being the land of the free. We also need news to improve humanity. Without news, our freedoms would cease to exist. The first reason why we should agree with Thomas Jefferson is because if we don't have news, then we will no longer be our own people and will become brainwashed, and in turn will lose our freedoms and rights. For example, in North Korea, they do not have freedom of the press, which also means that they can't express their opinions. They are preconditioned to hate people unlike them, and will never be able to improve humanity's situation. We should always choose to have news, because once you stop being exposed to different opinions, change is impossible. A wise man makes his own decisions. An ignorant man follows the public opinion. Grantland Rice. To be good people and be able to improve and learn from our mistakes, we must be able to have our own opinions. We have to have news about problems and ideas to fix them, or else we'll become inhumane and prejudiced, which will lead to people being racist, sexist, classist, and elitist. Another reason why we should agree with Thomas Jefferson is that when we stop having news, then we will no longer be a land of the free, and instead will become restricted, and everyone will be a follower and not a leader. And because of that, there will be no change. Once people stop being exposed to different ideas and beliefs, then we will believe whatever we are told, and our country will no longer be accepting of all races, religions, and ideas. And our country will be just like the unjust countries that we go to war with to defend human rights and give people a fair and just life. We will lose all our freedoms, not just the freedom of press, also the freedom of speech, religion, and assembly. We should always keep our core beliefs, because that is why we declared our freedom from Great Britain. We included our freedom of press in the First Amendment. The freedom of press is extremely important for our country's ideology. We declare that human rights are for all of us, no matter our class, our opinions, or our sexual orientation. Ban Ki-moon, 8th Secretary General of the United Nations. The final reason to agree with Thomas Jefferson is that having news and being informed is essential to the betterment of mankind. We need to be informed about the hardships and problems that face us to be able to fix the problems we have. We need news to improve people's lives. We need to stay knowledgeable. Having news is more important than having a government, because everyone can help people. They just need to be educated that their help is needed. As long as we are informed, we can do a lot, and we need news to do that. That is why we as Americans should agree with Thomas Jefferson's quote, "Were it up to me to decide whether we had a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." Because news allows us to change to happen. It lets our country be a land of the free, and it gives people an opportunity to contribute to the betterment of mankind.
Well done. Congratulations. Okay, is Carly Borges here? Oh, okay. Not a problem. Would she like to come up and have somebody else read it for her, or do? Okay. Well, for the time being, let's bring Luke O'Brien up then. And his teacher, Ms. Gerber? Mr. Gerber's not here. All right, well, Mr. Cook, come on up.
Oh, it's Bow Tie Friday again.
In 1967, at the height of the Vietnam War, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara commissioned a report on the history of American involvement in Vietnam. Around 40 people, either Department of Defense employees or specially cleared civilian analysts, were put to work on the project. Among them was a young former Marine named Daniel Ellsberg. Though Ellsberg was originally a supporter of the war, he had become skeptical. He was particularly disheartened by the contents of the Pentagon Papers, having called them evidence of a quarter century of aggression, broken treaties, deception, stolen election, lies, and murder. He photocopied the papers and sent them to the New York Times. 3 months later, the Times published some of the most damning articles from the paper, and the Nixon administration was quite livid. People learned of illegal bombings, coups, and all-around dishonesty from the government they were supposed to trust so much. Not long after, publication of the article was halted by a district court judge. But the New York Times appealed, and the case eventually made it into the Supreme Court in the famous case, the New York Times Company versus the United States, where they ruled 6-3 in favor of the Times. The highest court in the land had decided that this newspaper's right to free speech was more important than the secrecy of the military. And though the Supreme Court's track record is far from perfect, this is one they got spot on. A free press is more important than a functioning government because a free press lets us know what our representatives are doing and holds offices of the government accountable. Prior to 1979, members of Congress were able to speak on the floor with near complete secrecy. If somebody said something their constituents might not have wanted to hear, they could go back into the editing room and strike the remarks from history. But in 1979, Brian Lamb decided to change this. He created C-SPAN, a network to this day broadcasts everything from speeches on the floor of the House or Senate to speeches given by influential political figures. Many have accused C-SPAN of hindering progress within Congress. But what progress are they to make that the American people shouldn't know of? Congressmen and women are elected by the people, and those people have a right to know the things that their congresspeople say while representing them. Countries like Russia have seen the issues with a free speech crackdown in a country. Most all media outlets are state-run, and the ones that aren't are faced with threats forcing them to limit criticism of President Vladimir Putin and his party, the People's Front. While some would say that their government has far less gridlock, the price of this is a government that has corrupt leaders, invades foreign countries, and oppresses groups like homosexuals. The thing they are able to pass with so much more efficiency are things many of their constituents don't even want passed. If it weren't for the free press telling us what our representatives did, corruption would run even more rampant than it does today. Of course, transparency that a free press provides is not exclusive to the elected representatives. It is equally important that U.S. citizens are informed about the actions of members of government they don't elect. Of course, these agencies often don't have the same transparency rules that electable branches do, making for some necessary dirty work. The controversial organization WikiLeaks is likely the most effective news outlet focused on this aforementioned dirty work. Though WikiLeaks has made government's job far more difficult, they did so to the benefit of its citizens. A democracy is not supposed to work under secrecy. If the parts of our government are unbeholden to transparency and ethic rules are able to function with confidentiality, they can commit atrocities, like they did in Guantanamo Bay. WikiLeaks, however, served as a check on this injustice, publishing documents of it for every man, woman, and child in the world to see. Many were outraged by these injustices and sought to rectify them, with Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and John McCain all endorsing the proposal to shut down the camp. Although the camp to this day remains open, people are at least knowledgeable of its atrocities thanks to a free press. While governments not kept in check by a free press are able to function with a good deal of efficacy, behind that 1984-esque veil of an efficient government lies oppression and atrocity. When Jefferson and his fellow founding fathers dreamed up the American experiment, they kept in mind a system of checks and balances. This is often interpreted merely in the idea of each of our three branches checking each other, but I would argue they had more in mind. A check that could be controlled by anyone who knew how to read, the free press. This check has been the most instrumental to the experiment's success. How would people know what the people they elect to represent them do or from whom they take money? How would people know whether their military is representing American values of integrity whilst fighting overseas? The answer to all of these questions is they wouldn't. Though a free press is often the subject of criticism by those in power, the democracy they serve would not be nearly as successful without it.
Well done. Okay, next up is Kate Richards, a 7th grader from Loyalsock, whose teacher is, in fact, Mr. Cook.
Were it up to me to decide whether we had government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter. These words were written by none other than Thomas Jefferson in a letter to Edward Carrington about free speech. The letter was written on the eve of the French Revolution. In the letter, Jefferson is saying that he would rather live in a world with news and freedom of expression but no government, rather than a world with government but no news or free speech. It is astounding how one of our founding fathers, who helped establish the government, would prefer free speech and news over the government. However, I do agree with Jefferson. The media keeps the government in check, and we need freedom of the press and freedom of speech in today's society. A quote that I have seen before emphasizes Jefferson's point. It states, "First I came for the journalists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a journalist." We have no idea what they did after that. Although it is meant to be comedic, it does prove a point. Without the media, the government would be left to its own devices, free to do whatever it wanted. It is basically leaving a toddler alone in a room full of valuables, hoping he doesn't ruin anything, and letting him do whatever he wanted without anyone being aware of what he was doing. No parent or responsible adult would do that to a toddler, so why would that be the reasonable thing to do to our country? We need the media, but we also need good, honest reporters who report the facts with no bias. In today's society, with so many important national and international events happening every day, we need to know what's going on in the world and our country. Some people may think that it's no big deal to get rid of the media, but think about it. That means no news stations, no newspapers, no nothing. We would be completely oblivious to the world around us. Consider the Watergate scandal. Richard Nixon was caught breaking into the Democratic headquarters and stealing information, among other things. Without the press, we never would have discovered and exposed him for all of the terrible things that he did. With good, honest reporters and news, citizens of the United States can be aware and active in today's society. Jefferson's quote could also take a metaphorical turn. Newspapers could represent free speech, and the government could represent the obstruction or restriction on that. Although most people will agree with this quote if you think about it in that way, most people think about it in a literal sense and disagree with the quote. Why? We have an almost blind trust in the government. We think that since they are elected into the government, they won't make mistakes. But people make mistakes. However, some people might try to cover their mistakes up. That's where we need freedom of speech. If someone in the government messes up and tries to cover it up, that could backfire on the whole country, which could cause disasters as severe as war. But if the press can reveal the mistake, there are ways for it to be corrected. Then it could all turn out better. Without free speech and free press, it would be hard to get anything across, and would also limit expression and creativity, which can make people feel trapped, and could even lead to rebellion against the government. Free speech is one of the most important things that we have. We cannot let it be taken away from us. Thomas Jefferson's quote truly made me reflect on free speech and how important that right is to all American citizens. We truly take it for granted, but if it was taken away from us, we would be furious. Free speech is vital because it keeps the government from getting out of control, and we need free speech and press in society. It is hard to stress how important the First Amendment is because no one has ever taken it away from us. Someday, maybe we should try living without free speech or the media, only for a day, so everyone could see how important free speech and free press truly are.
Okay, so I just wanted to note, Kate Richards was actually our overall winner for the essays, so congratulations, Kate. And I believe we're going to go back to Carly Borges, and her teacher, Mrs. Campbell, is going to read Carly's essay for us. So Mrs. Campbell?
Freedom of the speech and freedom of the press are so essential to our nation that the framers included them in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Thomas Jefferson once wrote, "Were it up to me to decide whether we had a government without newspapers or a newspaper without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." I would have to agree with Thomas Jefferson that freedom of speech and freedom of the press is important, if not more important, than government. Expressing opinion and emotion can be most powerful in the form of words, which makes the idea of losing our freedom of speech and freedom of press even more worrying. One reason why I agree with Thomas Jefferson is because freedom of speech is one of the most impactful things in the world. Many people are influenced by the words, I didn't bring my glasses for this, I'm sorry. By the words of the people they look up to. People can be encouraged to believe in, fight for, or engage in something just by the words spoken by the people they find influential. That can play a big part in politics and in general. Any decision can be made by the people of a community. For example, when Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech, many people were encouraged to fight for equal rights for all people. When people are influenced by someone, they are led to believe in certain things that the people believe in. This can impact an entire community. Freedom of speech makes the biggest impression on the people of the world. Another reason why I agree with Thomas Jefferson is because freedom of press is one of the most important rights we have in this country. In the Constitution, under the First Amendment, it states, "Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the freedom of press." Freedom of the press is a right we have in which we get to write our opinions without censorship by the government. The written word is the most respected form of influence. Teachers teach it in school. You see it everywhere. Our life is based on reading and writing. Without it, there would be no purpose. Freedom of the press can influence even the most powerful people to follow our lead. Without it, we might not have some of the rights we have today. Things wouldn't have been taken from us, which makes us wonder what life would have been like without the right to express our own opinions. The government, like most things in life, can take things away from us. If we hadn't, or couldn't have, voiced our opinion, we wouldn't have as many rights as we do today. Without the many speeches, opinionated news articles, and the ability to not be censored by the government when doing something or creating these things is a gift. The government is known for making and enforcing the rules of our country, so the thought of not having a say in the decisions that are made by the government is scary. I'm glad our country has the opportunity to change its fate through the influence of words. As Thomas Jefferson said, he would choose to have newspapers without government over government without newspapers. If he had to, and as I have showed throughout my reasoning, I think that Thomas Jefferson's choice is the most reasonable choice. Freedom of speech and of press is much more important and impactful than the government. The freedom we have has the power to influence the world, and we shouldn't abuse that. I wouldn't hesitate for one moment to agree with Thomas Jefferson.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our essay winners for reading your essays and presenting them here today. We'll next turn to our Law Day art winners, and I'd like to invite Alice Raver, fifth grader, up here, and her teacher, Mrs. Weaver. And I'll just note before Alice starts, this year we had a couple of new categories of entries. We had a couple of poems and songs, both of which we will hear samples of today. I believe Alice has a poem.
The Rights of Freedom. The day was December 15th, 1791. Also the day that changed all Americans, the First Amendment was done. Rights were changed and molded for everyone to agree. Some rights were free speech, others free press, and free society. Free speech means you have the right to say what you choose, but some things will be consequential in which the laws might refuse. Free press is also a right we have to publish anything, but you will be in trouble if it offends another human being. Free society is a law to live your life how you decide, but you can't tell others how to live and take their living pride. All rights are important, especially these three, because the Constitution states these rights secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. These rights are so important. Without them, America wouldn't be the same. We all changed and transformed. Oh, what a country we became.
New video this year.
Okay, next we have Zachary Wagner Pizza and his teacher, Mr. Cook.
In my picture, I have a representation of the Capitol building held up by 3 columns. Yes. The 3 columns are colored red, white, and blue as the 3 colors of the U.S. flag. The 3 columns with free speech, free press, and free society represents the theme of this 2019 Law Day. The cracks of the columns represent how there have sometimes been cracks in the past, but the columns haven't completely fallen, still holding up this Capitol building. I use the Capitol building because, in my opinion, it represents a good idea of the United States.
Next we have Marianne Tran and her teacher, Mrs. Cipriani.
What I had in mind when making this drawing was that we all know about these current issues like gender roles, immigration enforcement, and deportations, police brutality, gun control, climate change and pollution, and also the harmfulness of the school dress code that extends far beyond the school building. And the point I was trying to make was that we all know about these things through freedom of press, and we can feel free to talk about these things from freedom of speech. And we can feel free to have different opinions with others without feeling threatened by them. And I guess my point is that without freedom of speech and without freedom of press, we don't even have a free society.
All right, and would Brinley French come up? Seventh grader from Loyalsock, and again, Mr. Cook.
People's voices, simple choices. Give them speech, let them preach. Liberty in society, although gives the government great anxiety, allows people the right to be an individual. Out of the blue, a voice may come through with a new idea that could change every view of the world we live, fulfilled with men that may strive, with words to give, ideas conjured to thrive. Let the women and men speak their minds, give the American a book and a pen, accept perspectives of all kinds. Thank you.
And last but not least, and in fact our overall winner, Maria Blass, again a seventh grader from Loyalsock, student of Mr. Cook's. Come on up. And Maria has a song for us. So.
I think so. Let's hope so.
Words, they can tear off nations. Ooh-wee, okay, let's start over. I'm so sorry. Our words, they can tear up nations. They can build up people. They can fix up relationships. Just say it, just say it. As long as you're not yelling fire, or it's not you being a liar. Just say it, just say it. As long as you're not hurting others, or trying to force each other. It don't mean that there aren't consequences, but that's only because we are all opinionated. Control the TV, not the world. That's what free speech is. Come on now. Use it for better, clean up all the beaches. March for our lives, watch people's guns. Love has no labels, love anyone. And racism, said Rosa Parks, and that's what's going on so far. The news comes on Sunday, you can see everything they say. Some things you can't believe, they even put in a magazine. But they have rights too, they can do what they want to. Just say it, just say it, tell the truth to anyone that's listening. Just say it, just say it. The government can't fix it. It's the free press deal that they deal with. And in a free society, we know what we want to believe. We read it, we say it out loud. We have free speech, free press. We have a free society. Just say it, just say it. We have free speech, free press, and a free society.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, I think this year we had some of the better entries as we have over the past several years. So congratulations to all of our winners. And if we just have a round of applause for everyone. And now I'd like to give our judges an opportunity to make any remarks that they'd like to.
Okay. Judge Brown?
I'll give you an example of what I think can happen when we don't respect free speech. I read an article recently in a paper that kind of sent chills up my spine. The article said the Russian parliament recently passed a law outlawing, with criminal penalties, speech that shows, quote, disrespect of authorities. Such disrespect can lead to heavy fines and 15 days of incarceration. It went on to say any online article containing, again, blatant disrespect for the government or public morality will have to be deleted within 24 hours. And that law was signed by Vladimir Putin. That's what can happen when you don't have respect for free speech. Martin Luther King said about free speech, quote, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. I have to say, very impressed with the students today. What you've said is far better than what I could have written if I had to do it. It gives me the feeling we're in good hands with the young generation today. Thank you. We appreciate what you've done today.
I remarked to Judge Butts that our Law Day started in 1958. That was the year that we were born, only 25 years ago, which was wonderful. I want to congratulate all the award winners, all their parents, loved ones, teachers. Like Judge Brown said, the talent level is amazing, the insight's amazing for just such young kids. You can tell how much work they put into it, the courage that it takes to come up here in front of all these people and do what they did. That's impressive, and I think it is a testament to their character, I think it's a testament to the character of their family and loved ones, and of course their teachers. And it's nice to see. As Commissioner Massari said, this is a nice time for me. Lots of times we don't, Judge Brown and I had to talk this week about a couple things. Some of the things we see aren't the nicest things in the world. Our bubble was burst a long time ago, and it really gives us, it's uplifting to see these kinds of things, and it's uplifting to walk around the courthouse and look at all the artwork and everything. And I want to thank you, everyone, again. Congratulations.
There's not much more to say other than I can say these last 20-some years of doing this particular job, I've seen an awful lot of presentations. And each year, it is amazing to me the amount of dedication that not only the youth have and the parents have, but the teachers. And I think this year more than ever, I've known that teachers were here in support of their students, but the fact that you were able to come up and also show the rest of the people that will be watching this presentation at a later day how dedicated you are to encouraging your students and to just helping them find their truth and their voice. And I really think that it's a product of our society and a measure of the success of our society as the voice and the speech of our youth. So personally, because I know what it's like to have a teenager in high school and to hear all the comments, why do we have to read this book and why do we have to learn about old people? This is why, because those who fail to learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. So thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone. Congratulations.
All right, and I'd just like to conclude by again offering a sincere thank you to all of our students, parents, and teachers for participating in this program. It's something that we as an association and I think as a profession look forward to every year and continue to be impressed year after year. So a couple of final notes. One, we'd like to ask all of the winners to stick around for a moment, come up front so we can get some photos. There will be a reception in the Jurors Lounge for all of the Art Day winners and their families, sponsored by the Lycoming County Paralegal Association, and a reception over at the Old Corner for members of the Law Association. I'd also like to note that all of the winning essays and art projects will be posted on the Lycoming Law Association website, as well as today's ceremony was recorded by Michael Strunk Digital, and that will be broadcast on the Lycoming Law Association YouTube channel. So with that, I wish you all a good evening, and thank you again for another great Law Day.
And this special session of court has now concluded. Thank you all. Okay, hang around for the picture, could you?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, always. If we have a senior, we try to, whether it's the swearing in or because sometimes we don't know how to get a hold of people.